Of Masvingo in Zimbabwe.
This is one family's struggle to survive in Zimbabwe. A family of orphans trying to grow food in the same field where they buried their parents. They're alone and going hungry, and at the age of just 17, the eldest boy, Ernest, is trying to support them all. It's so hard, he told me. I can't sleep at night because I know they're all suffering, because I can't find food. Almost a third of Zimbabweans, 2.8 million people, need food aid now. But only a fraction are getting any help at all. This is a Red Cross feeding programme for the under fives, but their funds are so low that they can only care for small numbers of children. And even then, the volunteers say the food sometimes runs out.
When we don't feed, it seems at home they will just drink water. At the end of the day, you find them fast asleep, or you find them crying, or you find them just moving.
Drought in Zimbabwe has compounded the failure of Robert Mugabe's land reforms. Across Masvingo province, we found the fields parched and the crops dying.
Everybody's crop has failed.
Yeah, it's failed.
Joao Stole is HIV positive, and without 3 good meals a day, his antiretroviral drugs start to poison his body. And he's not getting those meals now.
And it makes you feel sick when you take these without food?
Yeah, even you can die. But if you eat, you don't feel anything, you feel strong.
AIDS and hunger are a disastrous combination here. Manashi Zaruma is now so weak that he relies on neighbours to support him and his 4-year-old son.
Nothing. Food.
No food?
No food.
Zimbabwe should be better now, more than a year after President Mugabe started sharing power, but every day is still a fight for so many. The roadside traders battling it out for just a few dollars a day.
This just shows the level of desperation here. This is a daily routine. The women coming here to try to sell produce they've grown in their gardens, because this is the only way they can get money. There are no jobs in this part of Zimbabwe. This is the only way they can support their children.
I don't have money to go to feed my child, so I'm very angry.
Zimbabwe has fallen so far over the past decade that even with political progress, there's so much damage to be undone. Ernest and his brothers and sister are getting by on just 1 meal a day now. They have each other, but nothing else. Emma Hurd, Sky News, Zimbabwe.
Well, Emma joins us live from Masvingo in Zimbabwe. And Emma, do you think there's now complacency for the outside world that since the power-sharing government was set up in Zimbabwe, people perhaps think that the problems there aren't as bad as they are and that less aid has flowed into the country?
I think there has been a shift in focus towards the politics. Understandably, a year ago, Robert Mugabe started to share power. We've seen this national unity government, and it is making slow progress here. But the fact is, the majority of the people are still living in poverty, and they haven't been uplifted at all, which makes them all the more vulnerable to disasters like drought, which is what they're experiencing at the moment. So many people in this area are subsistence farmers. They rely on what they can grow in the field to get food and also to sell to get more staples like maize meal and perhaps even meat. But at the moment, those fields are producing nothing, so they're going hungry. And because of the 90% unemployment rate here, they can't get jobs, they can't get salaries, so they can't get the foreign currency that they need to go and buy the food in the shops. And there is food in the shops now. This is the big difference over the past year in Zimbabwe. They got rid of the Zimbabwe dollar, which was worthless because of inflation. They brought in foreign foreign currency here, and the shops have filled up with food, but only for those with salaries, only for those who can afford it, and millions of Zimbabweans cannot, and so they are extremely desperate at the moment, which is why the Red Cross and other aid organisations are appealing for help. 2.8 million in need of food aid even before this drought, and that number is expected to rise sharply over the coming months.
And as you point out in your report, there is some medical aid getting through, which is fantastic for those HIV sufferers. But if they don't have the food, then they're not taking the drugs because they're making them ill.
Yeah, AIDS has long been one of Zimbabwe's biggest problems, and until recently the problem was that they didn't have these antiretroviral drugs to take. Well, the aid agencies are here, they're bringing them in, they're making them available, but now you have this hunger crisis. These drugs effectively become toxic if you take them on an empty stomach, and so those people who had got onto that life-saving treatment are now defaulting on it, and they're effectively becoming a death sentence for them. They stop taking the drugs. What happens is your body then becomes immune to the antiretrovirals when you stop taking them, and they can't get back on the treatment. So this hunger crisis is potentially a double catastrophe, not just the children and the vulnerable going hungry here, but the sick in terms of HIV getting sicker, developing full-blown AIDS, which of course is an extra burden on a health system here which is really struggling to get back on its feet.
Emma Heard for us there in Zimbabwe. Thanks very much.